There is a strange moment that often happens before a meaningful relationship enters your life, a moment most people completely misunderstand. It doesn't look like excitement, passion, or fireworks. Instead, it feels like silence, a kind of emotional calm that appears after a long period of confusion, heartbreak, or searching. And according to Carl Jung, this quiet phase may actually be one of the strongest signals that your psyche, and perhaps the universe itself, is preparing you for something new. Carl Jung believed that relationships are never random encounters. They are psychological mirrors. People enter our lives when our inner world reaches a certain stage of development. Before that happens, something subtle begins to shift inside us. The chaos that once defined our emotional life slowly starts to settle. Old obsessions lose their intensity. The urge to chase love fades. And strangely, the moment we stop desperately searching for connection, connection begins to approach. This calm is not emptiness. It is psychological space. Jung described the human mind as a process of individuation, a long journey of becoming more whole. During this process, there are phases when the psyche reorganizes itself, releasing outdated patterns and preparing for a new stage of growth. And relationships that emerge from this phase tend to be very different from the ones we experienced before. What many people call bad luck in love is often just a mismatch between inner readiness and outer opportunity. But when that readiness finally begins to appear, life often grows quiet for a moment. Not because nothing is happening, but because something deeper is aligning beneath the surface. And this calm is often the first sign that something, or someone, may soon enter your life in a way that feels strangely meaningful. One of the most revealing signs that a new relationship may be approaching is something that initially feels uncomfortable: the sudden collapse of your old emotional patterns. The dynamics that once defined your relationships, the same type of partner, the same arguments, the same disappointments, begin to lose their grip on you. What once felt normal now feels strangely out of place, almost as if you're watching an old version of yourself from a distance. According to Carl Jung, our relationships are not accidental. We are unconsciously drawn to people who mirror parts of our psyche, especially unresolved aspects of our shadow, the hidden elements of ourselves we have not yet understood. This is why many people repeat the same emotional stories again and again. They are not simply choosing similar partners. They are replaying unresolved inner conflicts. But something interesting happens when the psyche begins to grow. The unconscious patterns that once attracted certain types of relationships start to dissolve. You might notice that behaviors you once tolerated suddenly feel unacceptable. Situations that once pulled you in now create distance. It's not that you are trying harder to choose differently. It simply happens naturally, as if your internal compass has quietly recalibrated. This shift often marks an important psychological transition. Jung described this stage as part of the individuation process, the gradual integration of unconscious parts of the self into awareness. As this happens, the energy that once fueled unhealthy emotional patterns begins to disappear. And when those patterns fade, the kinds of people you attract and the kinds of people you feel drawn to begin to change as well. What many interpret as a period of loneliness or confusion is often something far more meaningful. It is the psyche clearing space. Old relational dynamics no longer fit the person you are becoming, but the new ones have not yet arrived. And in this quiet transition, the universe sometimes seems to be preparing the stage for someone who resonates with the person you are now, not the person you used to be. At some point in this inner transition, something unusual may begin to happen in your life. Small coincidences start appearing in ways that feel strangely meaningful. You randomly hear someone mention a place you were just thinking about. A book recommendation appears exactly when you need guidance. You meet people in situations that seem almost too perfectly timed to be accidental. And while each event may appear minor on its own, together they begin to create a quiet sense that something is unfolding beneath the surface. Carl Jung described these experiences with a concept he called synchronicity. Unlike ordinary coincidence, synchronicity refers to events that are not causally connected but are linked by meaning. In Jung's view, the human psyche is not isolated from reality. It is deeply intertwined with it. And when our inner world reaches certain moments of transformation, the external world sometimes seems to reflect that shift in symbolic ways. This does not mean the universe is sending obvious signs or dramatic messages. In fact, synchronicities are often subtle. They appear as small alignments, conversations that happen at the right moment, unexpected opportunities, or encounters that seem to guide you in a certain direction. These moments rarely force anything to happen. Instead, they gently nudge your awareness towards something you might not have noticed before. During periods of psychological change, your perception also becomes more sensitive. You start paying attention to patterns you once ignored. Your intuition becomes sharper. Jung believed that when we move closer to psychological wholeness, the boundary between inner meaning and external events becomes more fluid. The world begins to feel less random and more connected. And it is often during these periods of subtle alignment that new relationships emerge in the most unexpected ways. Not through forced searching, but through moments that feel strangely timed, as if two life paths that were developing separately are quietly beginning to intersect. Before a meaningful relationship enters your life, another subtle but powerful shift often begins to unfold. Not in your external circumstances, but deep inside your inner world. You start questioning things that once felt certain. Your priorities slowly change. The way you see yourself, love, and even the kind of life you want begins to evolve in quiet but undeniable ways. According to Carl Jung, this is not random emotional fluctuation. It is part of a deeper psychological movement known as individuation, the process through which a person becomes more aligned with their authentic self. During this stage, the psyche reorganizes itself. Old beliefs about love, attachment, and identity begin to dissolve, making space for a more mature and conscious version of who you are becoming. This transformation often feels confusing at first. You may lose interest in things that once felt essential. Certain social dynamics begin to feel exhausting. Even your expectations about relationships start shifting. Instead of chasing intensity or validation, you may find yourself valuing calm, depth, and emotional safety in ways you never did before. Jung believed that relationships capable of real psychological depth only appear when a person begins to move closer to their true self. Before that happens, we tend to form connections based on unconscious needs, approval, validation, or unresolved wounds. But as the psyche reorganizes, those unconscious motivations begin to fade, and with them, the types of relationships they once attracted. From the outside, this stage may look like uncertainty, but internally, something much more important is happening. Your emotional foundation is being rebuilt. And when that foundation becomes strong enough, the kind of relationship that enters your life is no longer built on old wounds or unconscious patterns, but on a deeper psychological alignment between two evolving individuals. The final sign is perhaps the most difficult to explain, yet many people recognize it instantly when it happens. It's a quiet, almost unexplainable feeling that something or someone is approaching your life. Nothing dramatic has occurred yet. No obvious person has appeared, and still, there is a strange sense of anticipation as if a chapter of your life is about to turn. This feeling is not based on logic. It doesn't come from evidence or external confirmation. Instead, it emerges from a deeper layer of the psyche. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind is constantly processing patterns, experiences, and emotional signals long before our conscious awareness understands them. In many cases, the psyche senses an approaching change before the rational mind can identify what that change will be. When the inner world has gone through the transformations we discussed, the calm after emotional chaos, the collapse of old patterns, meaningful coincidences, and a reorganization of your inner values, the psyche often reaches a stage where it begins to anticipate the next step in its development. And sometimes, that next step arrives in the form of another person. This doesn't mean destiny is writing a fixed script for your life. Jung never suggested that relationships are magically preordained. But he did believe that when two people are undergoing compatible psychological growth, their paths can intersect in ways that feel almost symbolic. When that happens, the connection often carries a sense of familiarity, as if the meeting itself completes something that was quietly unfolding long before the first conversation ever happened. That subtle feeling of anticipation many people experience is not necessarily about predicting the future. It may simply be the psyche recognizing that it has finally reached a place where a deeper connection is possible. And once that inner readiness exists, the external world sometimes responds in ways that feel strangely well-timed. In the end, the universe may not be sending someone into your life in the mystical way we often imagine, but when your inner world becomes aligned with who you truly are, the relationships that enter your life tend to reflect that alignment in ways that feel almost impossible to ignore.